Um, Mara Lantz.
Mara Lantz, that's me.
Mara, what's going on? There, where are
All
you?
right.
Where are you?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the bottom one because that's kind of the
All right.
chronologically earlier one. So great to meet everyone. I'm loving seeing the art and hearing about it. I am actually I'm an artist that's very narrative driven. So I love hearing stories. It's a big part of why I applied to the show in the first place because the idea of two different self-portraits and the way that they were in conversation with one another
Yeah.
was really inspiring for me. I thought it brought up a lot for me, and then it made me wonder like how other people were going to interpret it. So it's been really fun to see and to hear. But this self-portrait is from my senior thesis show back in college. And it's called Navel Gazing. And it's pen and ink in very scribbly format. And I did a lot of my senior thesis show is around the idea of trying to capture what it felt like to be in my particular body. So I did that in a very literal way with a number of the self-portraits by doing these kind of forced perspective photos
Yeah.
or drawings of what I could actually see. Because when you're doing a lot of self-portraits, classically, you're having to look at a mirror or look at a photo, and it distorts it, it inverts it. And I liked the idea of what if I do my self-portraits of what I can actually see of myself. So this is from me laying down on my bed, and I have always really enjoyed the play between bodies and landscapes, and the way that when you kind of abstract what you're seeing, um, your mind starts to kind of play tricks on you in a cool way where you start
Yeah.
to question what you're seeing. And it, to me, forces me to like, this is really like how I like to see the world, is like looking at what interesting connections there are between bodies and landscapes, between bones and bark and different kinds of things. So this feels like it was really fun going back through my senior projects that my mom had thoughtfully stored in the garage to find a piece that spoke to me now. And I think this really nicely summarizes what I was kind of trying to do in that time. And pen and ink as a college student, and just like grappling with all of the insecurities and figuring out my way as an artist, I was really crippled by perfectionism if I used any kind of material that I could change my mind on. So I fell into using pen and ink to force myself to make decisions and not be able to take them back. And that was really freeing for me. And that's also why, when you saw in the detail, like the details are very scribbly because I didn't want to have perfectly straight lines. I didn't want to attempt perfectly straight lines. So that was kind of the thought there with that first piece.
Well, I love the negative space. I love that just the pure white there, and I almost expect to see um, like a bit of your nose. It looks like such a what I can see that you can almost see the edges of your eye looking through this. That's it's kind of the same thing that I've thought of this particular perspective before, and but sometimes you can also see like the corner of your nose out of there, or if you the corner of your eye. Anyway, it's very cool.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And then now, what's this thing? You've switched gears a little bit here, and I had to.
Yeah, so this
So
is
happy.
so the
First
fact
off,
that
let me.
these are so different is part of why I was so interested in this
Yeah.
show, which is that I studied art in college, knowing I studied art and psychology because those were the subjects that fascinated me, but I knew I didn't want to have either one of them be what I made money from. So I was like, I'm going to study them and kind of get my fill and then like figure out my career. And the career that I ended up choosing was in writing. So I've expressed myself a lot more creatively through writing in my 20s and 30s. And I only got back into making art about 2 years ago. I just recently started really getting back into art, and I'm in a completely different season of my life. I have two young kids. I'm back living in Marin County. Shout out Drew. I'm actually in Marin, where
Wow.
I was born and raised. I moved away for a long time, but moved back. And there's some interesting through lines in what I care about, despite the fact that my mediums have evolved so much. So this is called the opaque body. And it's very sculptural. So it's those of you who are able to see it in person, I think will have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
In the center there, it's a kind of like a vintage candy dish inverted. Um, and then painted black on the back side so that the glass on the top came through. And then all of the other kind of black shiny bits are thermodynamic plastic, which is very similar to a hot glue gun. And where it's solid and then you heat it up to a certain high temperature and it turns into a liquid. You kind of manipulate it to where you want it to be and then wait for it to cool and then you can layer it up. And so I've been really interested in how that kind of I've been going a lot more sculptural and more mixed media. But ultimately, this is an extension of like the series that I'm working on right now is called No Longer Serves. And it's about taking mostly glassware and gravy boats and ornate serving platters and these like physical ephemera of things that were designed for a purpose and for service and to look pretty. And then are a lot of times I'm getting them from estate sales and consignment shops and places where they were at one point loved and have now been discarded. And I'm adopting them and thinking about like how I can re-envision them and give them a new life with a very new type of beauty. So this is kind of when I thought about like what is a self-portrait to me right now, it's much more abstract and it's much more about kind of that concept of being created and told that like this is the way that you are supposed to behave and look and reclaiming that and coming up with kind of a new way to interpret that. And it's no coincidence that it also kind of looks like an eye that is looking back at you in a kind of unnervy way. But I love black. I love playing with different textures and things. So yeah, that's a bit about both of those.
The reuse of the last generation's, wants to love things. I've been doing, I say them now, they're multi-print liner cuts on linen, but they're Grandma Jane's linen that nobody else wanted when Grandma Jane passed. I've got these beautiful pieces of linen that nobody wants. And so they take ink like you won't believe. It's wonderful. Anyway, I love it's also very malleable. Not malleable, but it feels like it's got a good amount of flex to it. So
it does.